All right, welcome to City of Quinte West Environmental Stewardship Advisory Committee meeting for this Monday, September 23rd. Welcome to everyone, and I will officially call us to order now. All right, do we have any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I will entertain an approval of the agenda. Okay, moved by Councilor McHugh, seconded by Mr. Brown. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. All right, so I will entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the May 21st meeting. Okay, we have Councilor McHugh again, seconded by the mayor, and all in favor? Okay, that will be carried.
Should just make sure no questions, Mr. Chair.
Of course.
Also in the minutes, that's what I'm talking about the agenda.
Yes, I will proceed to the delegations, which we only have the one today. So I will call on Mr. Henning, public member, who will give us a presentation on the proposed Environmental Steward of the Year Award. Take it away, Randy.
Is the audio on? Yes, I guess it is. I expected about that time I should get a great feedback and screen, but it didn't happen either, so that's nice too. Anyway, good afternoon. I'm Randy Henning. I'm a public member of this committee, and for the sake of anyone who might wish to watch this later on YouTube or so on, I'd like to introduce myself and the members of our team. We were tasked our last environmental committee meeting to look at ways that we could reward people in our community that are giving their best to help look after the environment. And we've worked since then. We've submitted for review to Chris and his folks and asked for their advice. We've very happily received a good deal of advice. So I'd like to present what we found to you. First off, the team is made up of myself, Dr. Jacqueline Miller, Mr. George Brown, and Ms. Lori Dennis. Did I do that right?
You did.
Thank you. So, yes, what were we tasked to do? Well, of course, there's no end of people these days that rightly tell us that the environment isn't doing as well as it could. And of course, when we see this happening, we worry about, well, what can we do? And one of the first approaches always seems to be, well, let's find out who's making the mistakes, and let's pass bylaws to avoid them making mistakes. And then, of course, we'll have to enforce all those bylaws somehow. And maybe even some communities, as some communities do, establish snitch lines so we can squeal on our neighbors. And then, of course, if we pass a bylaw, there's always legal challenges to worry about, those kinds of things. Well, that may be necessary sometimes, but our feeling is that it should be the last resort. And maybe what most times, why don't we look around our community and identify those individuals, and there's plenty of them, and those businesses and those organizations that are doing a very good job of looking after the environment. There's small farmers, there's small market gardeners, there's small business people, there's big business people, organizations, many examples of people in our community that know what's required in the environment and are doing their best to make it happen, and in fact even educating their neighbors as to how to do it. So let's honor them, let's identify them first, and better still, let's involve the public in finding those folks and identifying those folks and nominating them. And let's reward them. And let's celebrate their accomplishments and set them up as an example that we can say, look, this is how you do it. And these people are admired in their community. And the thing is, once you start doing that, I'm convinced that others will follow suit, that they'll follow their example. So the whole idea of our suggestions here are that it'd be a community-based program. We go out to the public, ask for good examples of environmental stewardship, ask them to nominate people that might be eligible for a reward, and substantiate their nomination. Select from among those nominations, hopefully there'll be plenty of them, 'cause I'm betting there will be, select from among those nominations the best and honor them in some way. So I've passed out a copy of what we come up with initially. And the slide program that I have here has is quite brief. So if you could follow along, if you don't mind, in your City of Quinte West Environmental Steward of the Year Award proposal. And I don't intend to read it all to you. I don't have to, and I shouldn't. But as we go through here, if you have any questions, please bring them up, and I'll try and give a quick outline. So first off, you know, the proposal gives an overview of what we're trying to do, which I have just done. And it also proposes 3 types of awards, because there are different people doing different jobs out there wonderfully well, but to ask an individual to accomplish what a small business or a larger organization could do wouldn't be fair. So we're proposing 3 types of, or 3 categories of awards that we would give. One would be an award for individual stewardship. One would be for an organization. The other would be for small business. The nomination process, the whole idea here is to provide a fair bit of, or as much as possible, publicity of the program itself. Because when you do that, first off, we should get good responses, I'm hoping. But the other thing is that it'll create a public consciousness of, hey, yeah, our municipality is pretty cool. It's asking us to identify people who are doing a really good job at looking after the environment. And it will create a bit of a buzz, I believe. So we'd like to advertise it in local newspapers, municipal website, social media, public venues. Submissions, we've asked Chris's IT team if they could come up with a portal that the public could submit their nominations for the award. And of course, the rest is fairly pedantic: nomination deadlines, and so on. Committee review. There's basically 3 steps in here. One is to verify the data. The other is conduct interviews, site visits, document reviews of what's been submitted. Selection criteria. We believe that the public members of our committee would be quite capable of doing the selection, the review of what the public has submitted and selecting the winner, with our chair's overview, of course, and with help from staff to keep us out of trouble, basically. But in that way, we think we could keep the cost of the program down quite a bit, and we wouldn't have volunteered for this committee if we had not been keen to do that sort of thing in the first place. And if you're lucky and you're retired like me, you have the time. So if you look on through there, you'll see how we plan to evaluate the proposals that have been given to us, and basically it outlines quite an objective system of looking at what the person has done, and actually assigns points to each of the evaluation criteria. This was mostly developed by our friend George Brown here, and ask if anyone has any questions about it, or George, would you like to explain how the system would work?
Thank you.
Now you're good.
I think that what we wanted to do was really create a fair, objective, and a quantifiable criteria for evaluating submissions. And we used a methodology where basically we researched other municipalities, what they're doing. We looked at certified programs such as LEAD. And then we came back in a collaborative meeting that we discussed about what are the criteria that is fair and equitable. And I think that when you look at the criteria, you'll see there's four main categories: the environmental impact, the innovation and creativity, the community engagement and education, and the long-term sustainability. And under those criteria, I think we looked at, when we evaluated, we identified those are the four key criteria to look at. And then based upon our experiences, we identified that a point system would be very important so that there was no misunderstandings about how we got it. But in addition to the point system, the committee that is going to select the award winners, it's critical that all the applicants, it is properly detailed what score they received, and it is documented so that there's no misunderstandings on the scores themselves. So overall, we used a methodology that's proven. We had collaborative discussion, and we came back. We wanted to make this easy, and quite frankly, not to put many labor hours into these kinds of selection processes.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Just a couple of comments, Randy. I know you've got 3 different categories, but there are a number of other ones. How about schools? I know schools usually have environmental clubs, organizations, and they take part in the different activities, but they also have usually a number of students who are in charge of the recycling and so on. So I think that's something.
Absolutely, and I do believe, Mr. Mayor, that we could probably include that under organizations, could we not?
I think you could, but I guess I'm kind of biased. I'd like to see
I understand.
us encourage more children, because I believe if you get to the child in the car, Dad, slow down, that child's going to slow down more than the signs. But I think with this, it's my, if everybody else does, that's fine. This is my bias, and I'd like to see more of that. I'm thinking of air cadets as well, scouts and cubs, and any way that we can reach those organizations and encourage. I know you want to come to an award, where I want to come to I guess you'd say, an improvement to the overall city. And I know that's one of your objectives. Don't get me wrong. I'm just seeing it a little differently, that's all. But
as a matter of fact, we discussed those sorts of things in some detail, and I'm wondering if we could,
and maybe we can just take that into account when you do the evaluation.
Well,
maybe
I'm wondering
that
if
might
we
be
could
the
come up with
easiest.
wording that would, when we go out to the public and ask for nominations, to give those as examples: schools, school children programs, all those ones you mentioned. Would that do it, do you think?
Yes, Councillor Sharp.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just adding to Mayor Harrison's comments, and I appreciate so much work that's been done here. I'm thinking along the lines of the mayor, if we did add another category, which was youth groups or youth representation, which could include the schools, or any kind of youth as a category. Failing that, I know you maybe could add it to one of the criteria, but I do like the mayor's suggestion, so thank you.
I think that's A very good point. Thank you, Councillor Sharp. And I think that we could even ask that staff, if the committee and council were to approve the creation of this, we could even ask that staff make a point of forwarding some information rather than just kind of a call out to the public. They could even affirmatively reach out with the information to local schools and maybe Quinte West Youth Center, and to just make sure they definitely hear about it and are aware of timelines for submissions and whatnot. Councillor McHugh.
Thank you. I'm just wondering why we limit it to small business. Why not just business? I can give you an example. Herb Transport got hundreds of trucks that travel Ontario. They could do something, say a different type of fuel that not only benefits when they're traveling through Quinte West, but promotes across the province. You've got Trenton Cold Storage with hundreds of employees as well. You got CB Freezers probably with a couple of hundred employees. They're businesses. Why are we excluding them? And I'm sure they can find ways to be environmentally stewards as well, that they are part of Quinte West. So I guess, is there a definition? Should it be small business under 50 employees, large business over 50, or something along that line? I don't know. Oh, I think.
Jacqueline?
Yeah, just a couple of comments there on the two preceding comments. So we did have a lot of consideration of students and educational entities of youth and so forth. And one of the ways you could address that without excluding anyone that leaves a sort of an open brushstroke to the application is having a category of stewards of the future, meaning anyone that is not in the adult working world or not in big business, would just church groups, anything would be the caption or the catch-all for that. So that's something that could be entertained. In terms of some of the businesses that you suggest, I personally totally agree. I would still kind of consider them. I mean, we can consider them big business like ABM, Google, whatever. That's what I think of when I think of big business. So yeah, anything that is local to here, I actually would personally see as small business. So perhaps making the categories and then having an appendix somewhere with definitions so people know what they actually sit under would be useful. That's something we could discuss going forward.
Councillor McHugh?
Could we possibly just remove the word small, just make it a business category?
Or
And then
even what about local business?
Yeah, well, obviously, I guess because something's gonna,
Or
we
business.
want something that's within our boundaries, yes.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, did you have more comment?
Well, I just go to another group, if I might, and you may know this, but there's a young woman by the name of Carrie Tadeau, and she has the ability to encourage people to work with her, so she cleans up the on and off ramps on the 401 between Kingston and the Parliament buildings in Toronto. Yeah, that's one big undertaking, but she does this, I guess, one time, one of her best friends was Michelle Mendez-Knight, and Michelle Mendez-Knight died in Afghanistan and was repatriated here, and her mother lives in Grafton. So Carrie still goes and takes Mom out for lunch, but through the process, she does bring people with her and they clean up. So I don't know what do we do with this group or volunteers who work across boundaries?
I believe, sir, that those sorts of folks were included. You're the kinds of people we're thinking of when we were talking about, or made the category for individuals. That's an outstanding individual and certainly deserving of some kind of honor, you know.
Listen, it just warms my heart when I see them, because anybody on that 401, yeah, I have to drive it now and again. That's bad enough without stopping to pick up. And they do a fantastic job, and they've picked up everything from guns to you name it. Yes. Anyways, thank you.
What I might propose then is, we've had a number of excellent suggestions, school children, schools, scouts, youth groups, business as opposed to just small business, and I think that's certainly a good suggestion. Stewards of the future would fit in very well with, how would it be if we, as our next step, because it's still, as far as the actual what goes out at the public is still in somewhat of a development stage, let us look at that and ask for any more suggestions that you do have before we finalize the actual message in the public domain, and get your further input on it if required.
I think that's what we were going to do, and I'll entertain, just so we're, if your presentation is done, just so that we're debating officially, but I think that's what we'll go ahead and do now. If I can entertain
Excuse me, Chair, Mr. Chair, just a moment.
Could I add one more thing before we go much further?
Sure, go ahead.
I'd like to see us encourage people to put in clear plastic bags, empty alcoholic containers. Because that gives us the ability to send pictures to the people in charge of our environment, yes, but also in charge of our policing and discouraging drinking and driving.
Perhaps we should put the people, no, never mind. I'll tell you the rest of that later, Mr. Mayor. So, in any case, the only other point I wanted to mention was the award announcement, because this is going to be a big deal for the folks getting it. And I'd also like to just mention our thoughts on what we might give as an actual award. And we don't see either being very expensive, but can you imagine the sort of lift that people would get by being asked to attend the next council meeting, for example, to receive either a plaque or a framed certificate saying what a great job they've done in being environmental stewards. And especially if it's a business, as you say, they can hang it on the wall as you walk into whatever the business is. It's going to kind of bring and brag sort of thing. And also, if we broadcast it widely, as we do, their story is going to get told to everyone else in the community, and that's going to encourage everyone to emulate and to feel good about their community, which these days is something we need to build our community, not tear it down. So I would really strongly recommend that we carry on with this program, and I would request that you.
Sure. Councillor McHugh.
I think it's a great idea to get an individual award, but I'd like to see a wall or something at City Hall, much like the Stanley Cup. They all get a ring, but their name goes on the cup. So if anybody comes in here, they'll see we have an environmental stewardship wall here, and their names will be on the wall in addition to what the plaque is they take home. Doesn't be something big, but just their name is there. If somebody's standing around, nothing better to do, they can read it and say, oh, my neighbor got an award last year or 5 years ago or something, and leave it at that.
I certainly would not argue with that. By all means, whatever the city feels would be fitting for this kind of an award, and whatever the budget will bear, I would say, yeah, by all means, please do so.
So it sounds like, just before I ask for, I guess, a motion, we're still kind of, it sounds like, and my feelings in the committee may disagree, but I feel like for the first year at least, I think probably having not a huge amount of categories, just in case the number of applications are maybe less than we're expecting in it. But if I may suggest, possibly a local businesses or organizations category as the first one, maybe a future stewards and or schools education as the second, and then the third for individuals over the age of 18, I suppose. That could be, I think that would encompass all of the conversation that we've had, so I may just put that out there as a suggestion. And I do also like the plaque for themselves, the recipient, but also maybe to have a memorialization at City Hall of the award winners for that given year that can be updated. I like those. And I think that in terms of, I don't want to hem staff in too much on whether it's a council meeting or not, just because we don't obviously have a ton of flexibility on start times for that, and if a person can't make that meeting. But I think certainly we would be potentially open to recognizing them there. But if a ceremony with a tree planting was more preferred by them, I think we can kind of let staff handle that, but certainly I would welcome them to council if that works with their schedule. But Jacqueline.
Yeah, just one thing to add on before we go on to a motion is I agree with you. The first year may be great in terms of applications. It may be minimal. So what we could present on the portal is that these are the categories to which you can apply, and that they don't necessarily have to fulfill every category. And then that way, if there's only one application and it happens to be, organization or individual, then that's what gets awarded for that year. So it would be plastic, year to year. There may be one award, there may be two awards. There may be no awards. Let's hope not for that. I'd also like, and please forgive my vanity here. Working at the ROM, we have annual recognition awards to invigorate, activate, and encourage our staff, and we call them remarkable awards, R-O-M, markable. So punchlines and buzz phrases are great for capturing interest in things like social media and so forth. So I had made a suggestion of quintessential, the Environmental Stewardship Recognition Awards. So Quinte, big, large cap, essential. So quintessential, meaning it's the absolute necessary program in which one should be embarking on and doing something else. I just want to put that out there because I think that would really gravitate a lot of people to that. Specifically, it's a Quinte initiative, and that you're spectacular if you are involved in it.
Okay, Councilor McHugh.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this much longer, but another idea. I see you got award presentation June the 30th. I don't know how many council meetings we have on June the 30th, but we do have a Canada Day celebration on the 1st of July every year. We could have a booth where we could feature these people that have won the awards and maybe have a little billboard or something there and encouraging other people. And the city of Quinte West does have information booths to set up. So there's some little handouts. I don't know what we could give, but that might be the time to recognize them. At Canada Day, we get thousands of people down to Centennial Park. So just another thought, because I see it said award presentation June the 30th, but there'd be another way to get good recognition for them.
Just as a thought there, quickly.
Randy.
Yeah, I did find myself wondering, looking at those dates, if they would ever be hard and fast and cast in stone, because it may change, I'm thinking, from year to year, especially the award, the actual award granting ceremony, depending on where we do it. Would you not think? I don't think we have to necessarily tie ourselves to, maybe that would work for the first year, but as the thing progresses on, surely we can be flexible as to when we hand the person their bring and brag certificate.
I agree completely. I think in my experience, certainly, we just, I think, want to give a kind of a runway for staff to, of course, yeah, we could say the third Saturday, the calendar dates will change and there'll be different events. And I would love to pass on with the comments through Director Angelo, certainly with the quintessential. I think that's a great naming idea. And then the Canada Day celebrations, I think if that, if staff and communications thought that was a good idea and appropriate to celebrate them that day, I would certainly think that's a great idea too. So I would certainly pass those on and encourage that. I can't think of a better day to do that, actually. Mr. Brown.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. The question is more directed to Director Angelo, and I want to thank you for forwarding and working with the communications staff. There were 3 bullet points in your report that I didn't want to leave before we finish this discussion, and I think it's important because the communications team had indicated a single application process. That's a very good suggestion. And I know the working committee had discussion as recently as last evening that we think that is a great way to go, and especially to incorporate all the recommendations that have been discussed this afternoon. On the second one, we've talked about, Randy provided one option of selection, but, staff are going to be able to identify, there may be alternatives, and I think that we've got to be open and listen to that also. And in conjunction with Mr. Card, I think it's quite important that on the timelines and the criteria, the communication team said they'll build it out. And that's where we need to respect and acknowledge the work. So I didn't want to leave those 3 bullet points, especially after the time that they had put in.
Thank you, George. And yes, I had a couple of suggestions. I felt like certainly a staff member, Director Angelo, or perhaps Director Grimmin, or one of their delegates certainly could be part of the panel. We could invite a member from local environmental organizations. Certainly we have the conservation authorities, the public members of environmental stewardship. One of those could be selected, a council member, what have you. Director Angelo, I might call on you. Do you want further direction on, just based on the conversation here, do you want us to hone down or narrow down, or what more do you think you need?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot of great work has been put into this nomination process from the subcommittee, so thank you very much for all of your hard work. In the report that I provided, certainly staff are very supportive of this nomination process going forward. We find it almost similar to what Council endorsed at the last Council meeting with the awards program for the Accessibility Committee. And for us, we believe we have enough information to take this on now and bring it to fruition for next year. Your suggestions are well taken. We'll incorporate that in building the plan out now. We'll share that with the committee members as we develop it through our communications team. One of the things I wanted to note, and thank you, Mr. Brown, for pointing this out, but in my report, when staff looked at sort of the timeline for the announcements, we really targeted June the 5th, which is World Environment Day. We didn't want to compound it with Canada Day. We wanted it to compound with and put it strategically around World Environment Day. And that's a great initiative for us to make this announcement. Regardless of what's happening in the city or different meetings, I believe we could probably either get this committee or some council members together with His Worship and make the announcements on that day, because that's a recognizable day across this entire country and this world. And that's really the focus of why I believe you all came together on creating this nomination process. With that in mind, if council or if the committee endorses the recommendation from staff today, we can take this on now. All that hard work that you put into it, we can focus our attention on developing the program, developing the social media campaign, share that with you. Because time is going to be the essence coming January, February, early next year to get the plan out, communicate it, which is what our communications team does as part of their daily life. So,
Thank you, Director Angelo. And yes, I would note the importance of that June the 5th date, and certainly I think that if staff saw it fit, we could certainly hand out information at the booth on July the 1st. But I think it makes sense to coincide with that important date and get as much attention to the recipients as possible. And it is just by happenstance, the Accessibility Committee did, through council, just approved it at the last meeting, but a very similar award very recently. So it would be wonderful to see both of those come into effect in 2025. So it sounds like if Director Angelo has enough with that, I suppose if we like the idea of the individuals, local businesses / organizations, and then the future stewards was suggested by Jacqueline, I guess that I believe that we've covered all aspects. Councillor Sharp, did you have anything on the Zoom there to add?
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I would just concur with Director Angelo's suggestion regarding the major announcement, if we can, of the winner or winners on June the 5th, which is the World Environmental Day. And I say that because, as you mentioned, Chair, I sit on the Accessibility Committee, and we've gone through a similar process with the working group, and we will be announcing the winner of our Disabilities Award, or Persons with Disabilities Award, on International Disability Day. So we get the exposure and recognition to the individual on that day. So it just sounds very much in keeping. And again, just support all of the discussion and suggestions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I do want to also acknowledge the tremendous amount of work from the working group, and especially Randy and all of the public members certainly contributed, but I think this was definitely Randy's baby, and I appreciate all of the work. It's this is great. So I will entertain a motion with the conversation we've had, and maybe kind of an understanding of a little bit of an edit on the categories there, I guess. Councillor McHugh.
Question.
Sure, Councillor McHugh, go ahead. Yes, do I have a seconder for the?
Yes. Can I just add one more? And this is only a comment, that we be receptive to any other suggestions that might come. Once we make this public, some people might come forth with something else, so we'll be receptive to massage. Thank you.
If I could add to that, Mr. Mayor, we would more than be happy to entertain any suggestions from anyone, and especially from the public, because sometimes we're going to miss the mark, or sometimes we're going to do very well, and either way, it would be nice to hear.
Mr. McHugh?
Yeah, I just want to confirm, I'm assuming, because we've kind of stepped into the next issue here, the staff report for Director Angelo, that what we're making a motion for is for item 6A, technically. We've already discussed that pretty well, I think, haven't we, in this discussion? Everything in 6A?
Yes, that is correct. We did essentially staff report 24-017 PWES, yeah, 6A on the agenda.
That's the motion on the floor then.
Exactly, just with some guidance on those categories, I think, and so that is on the floor. If there is no further debate, I suppose I will call a vote. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. All right, so I will proceed to staff report 24-008 PWES. This is a review of waste and recycling audit of city facilities report. And with no presentation, I will more formally introduce this by handing it over to Director Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As committee members will recall from the last meeting, there's a direction to staff to look at sustainability and waste diversion across our municipality in terms of our municipal facilities. I'd just like to report and thank Mr. Brown for his time and effort in meeting with city staff over the course of a day to look at some of the largest city facilities that the municipality has, which include City Hall, our marina, our fire station or OPP, our op center, and our arena, and look at what we're currently doing in terms of waste, recycling, and organics collection and disposal, and looking at, I guess, our diversion targets and what our plan is and what our future plan would be. And without further ado, without putting Mr. Brown on the spot, I'd just like to thank him for his report and ask that if he's willing, if he would go through it a bit with the committee members. We found it very informative, to say the least. If we're going to be a leader in environmental sustainability and waste diversion, it needs to start here with us in Quinte West. It needs to start with municipal facilities. Overall, I believe we're doing a decent job. Could we be doing better? Absolutely. And that's where Mr. Brown and his experience comes into play, where he's made a number of suggestions about consistency and looking at improving our waste diversion going forward. And with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brown just to go through a bit of the report that he had prepared along our tour that we went through the facilities, and we can talk about this a little bit further.
Sure. Mr. Brown, go ahead.
First and foremost, I want to extend my appreciation to Director Angelo and Mr. Beamer for the time that we spent to complete this walkthrough. During the walkthrough of the 6 facilities, there was evidence that the city has implemented basic systems to promote waste diversion. I would like to highlight examples of waste diversion, in my opinion, that are very well done. In the marina, I have to tip my hat to the management of the waste diversion systems at the marina and the impact of how they ensure diversion. And to their credit, kudos to the manager and to all the people that are involved in that process. And I think that when I came away from that tour, I kept thinking to myself, the harbor itself, it illustrates such a beauty, a natural beauty, and quite frankly, there's so many visitors that come to our wonderful city that I think that at the end of the day, that we need to be able to promote what the harbor or the marina has done. And I really want to compliment them on that. The second element, and it may seem small, but it was really quite large to me, was the work that under Director Angelo's leadership, the implementation of water dispensing units. And you may think, oh, what's the big deal about water dispensing units? Well, it's significant from the standpoint of keeping the plastic water bottles out of our waste stream. And quite frankly, I think that it's amazing how many people use those water dispensing devices. Something small but major. And I think that needs to be captured from an environmental footprint standpoint. The final positive I do want to talk about was the interaction that we had with the on-site city staff. They were engaging. They had no problem suggesting improvements to us without a doubt, but they were open, they were honest, and they provided proactive suggestions to improve. In the executive summary that in the report that I put together, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I do want to point out that there are 3 themes that I think for improvement. One is standardization. And that standardization, the second one is education, and the third one is cost control. And when I talk about standardization, I think it's critical that the branding and the messaging of waste diversion is fully promoted within the city, and especially the facilities. I chuckled at Councillor McHugh's discussion about the wall, because we had further discussions about how important is that when our visitors come in to see our commitment to our environmental footprint. I think, though, that the internal collection inside, you will see we need to improve our standardization. And to the credit of staff, they've started that process. And it is as crazy as it sounds, it is a difficult process to start. Getting started is the most difficult. And you'll see in that report, there's 3 pictures of different solutions that I thought were applicable to the city that we may be able to use. The first one was Princess Margaret, and I happened to be at Princess Margaret with my wife, and I was looking at their process, and I thought they've done quite a good job for a very large institution to be able to standardize. The next one was Loyalist College, and I think it's important to see the work that Loyalist has done on branding and messaging. And the third one was at Carleton University, and I have specific experience where we took the diversion rate at Carleton University from 12% up to 90%, and they were recognized as the gold medal award winner in 2019 for their waste diversion efforts. So it all comes down to branding and marketing and standardization, so that if we're in the arena, we do the same thing as we do when we are at the marina, to be frank about it. I think the other element is education. There are a lot of staff when you go, I was thinking about Public Works, to be quite frank about it, and the consistency of getting people to do the same things, and education and having proper, what I would refer to as education guidelines for the public, for staff, and for contractors, because we found examples, quite frankly, of inconsistencies that could have a significant impact on waste diversion. I think that education needs to be a constant, and especially I know that Director Angelo is going to talk further about this, the transition with Circular Materials Ontario. And the fact is that, you know, one of the key components of that transition is to improve improve waste diversion. I think that on the final component on cost control, there are systems in place where we move internally material from one location to another location for bins. We just do. And over the years, there's logical explanations, maybe why we've done it, but I think it gives us an opportunity to reevaluate that, especially from a cost standpoint, to be able to determine what is a more optimized process. I think that we saw illegal dumping, and it was quite, it was significant. It just wasn't a few items here and there. And I think that when, you know, the city is paying for waste, it's important that we focus on what can we do to minimize the illegal dumping. I think that finally, you know, completing waste audits with quantifiable data. I listen to council meetings on an ongoing basis, and I see the challenges on cost. And when I hear the stressors on costs, I think there's such an opportunity right now to revisit that. But you only do that with quantifiable data, to be frank about it, and that's waste audits. And I know in discussions with Director Angelo, that is something that is on the radar, if I can put it that way. I think that I want to finish up that cost is a huge component. And when I look at it in light of transition with the Circular Material Ontario or the Extended Producer Unit, quite frankly, if we're putting recycling in the waste, the city is paying for those costs instead of letting the people that produce those products pay for the recycling cost. So I thoroughly enjoyed that day, to be frank with you. To interact at all those locations, you realize what good people work at the city. And quite frankly, there's tremendous opportunities, but I don't want to walk away from this discussion thinking that there isn't cost control mechanisms that we really need to focus on. So Director Angelo, I hope that's kind of alluded to the report, because I think you can read through the detail, but it gives you a perspective if we can keep in the back of our minds that standardization, education, and cost control are key components. Thank you.
Councilor McHugh.
Oh, I'm already on. Thank you. Yeah, excellent report, Mr. Brown, and to all that were involved with it. I was blown away by some of the common sense solutions that were brought forward. They're going to save time, cost, and the environment, such as the centralized waste. Instead of everybody having a waste basket, you have a centralized container they're doing the sorting when they take it there. A little exercise won't hurt them. The cooking oil, apparently we've been sending it out as hazardous waste. There's people who will buy that and use it, so it's going to get recycled, reused for something else. The hand dryers, I thought of this, I traveled the road a lot. I don't know of an en route that has paper towels anymore, so I don't even know why we have paper towels here, but that's a great waste, and it means you're not buying them, somebody hasn't keep filling them, and everybody gets a hand dryer. So I get extra report, but I really like that it was put in layman terms. I could understand it, which is nice, and it made sense. So I'm hoping I'm sure Director Angelo and the staff are gonna move forward on some of these things, and they're easy to do, like I said to begin with. So no, thank you, an excellent, excellent report. So I only had one question though. In two cases, it mentions in there about they're getting rid of skids efficiently when one location or not. How do we dispose of skids currently?
Director Angelo?
Through Mr. Chairman to Councillor McHugh, right now the skids that we receive at the city for different materials that we're receiving all get transported back to the companies that actually supplying the materials or whatever on the skids themselves. So we don't have a lot of surplus skids ourselves that we need to get rid of. I'm not sure about some of the other city facilities, but I'll have to make that inquiry to see what they're doing.
I can answer from my point of view. Some skids I get are not returnable, so I break them up and use them for firewood. And I do burn wood. That's the way it is. I could tell you right now that I've cut ash trees, and I could still cut 500 or 1,000 ash trees and barely make a dent on my place. And it's sad because ash is great lumber. I've used it for many things. My son built a cottage and finished the inside of it with ash lumber. So there are lots of, but unfortunately, that's not the case. So I do, but there are, most of our skids are recyclable, most of them, and the ones that are usually have a identification on them that tells you they are recyclable. So yeah, I'm really pleased with what Mr. Brown has done and found out because Director Angelo has worked on this for a long time. What year did we get the water buggy?
Through Mr. Chairman, I believe 6 or 7 years ago now.
Yeah, that's right, we did. And we got it because we saw somebody else with one, and we thought it was a fantastic idea. And we use it because it does have a refrigeration system in it, so the water is cold when you get it, and it's city water. There's nothing wrong with it. It's the best water you can get. And yeah, fill up your bottle rather than squash it and throw it out. Use it and use it and use it, and like you're doing. Only yours isn't the kind you can destroy. Yours is the kind that, yeah, right, and one next to you too. So, no, I appreciate that very much because we've tried to do this for a long time, and I believe we are winning because when I was just at the operations center being used there, recycling is great, and I'm at the arenas. They're making a sincere effort there. All our staff are to recycle and contain and reduce the amount of waste. So thank you very much to everyone that's doing their best. And I farm, and I do have waste, and I can show you corn that's 12 to 15 feet high because of that waste. Thank you.
And to the mayor's point, and I'll go to Councillor Sharp in just a second, but to the mayor's point, the water buggy, even at Hops on the Water, which of course we had this last Saturday, kind of our premier event, perfect opportunity. It was out in full force, and you had hundreds of people with their little cups, and you finish a couple of beer samples, go over and, get some hydration in between. And it's perfect because you think about just the amount of plastic bottles that would have been required. There was a bunch of food options, some of it spicy. I mean, we could have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of water bottles that day. Instead, we had the buggy, and it worked great. So, Councillor Sharp.
Oh, through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. I just also wanted to acknowledge the great work of Mr. Brown and the staff team. I really think this is such a good summation and it's clearly some recommendations that we can implement. I know there's always a budget and some is not, such as education, but I really like to get rid of these paper towels. And I like the suggestion about the organics, the pilot organics program in in the arenas and at the fire hall. I know sometimes this takes work and more time, but the savings and the impact on the environment, I just thought it was just great. The buildings that you attended and that, the succinct recommendations, I thought it was very beneficial, and going out with Sean and Chris and the team, it would be great. Great information. Thank you.
Just a further comment, you've just reminded me, and I attend both arenas regularly, and I receive numerous complaints regarding the dunk, in particular the ladies' washroom. We do have hand dryers in there, but the complaint I get is they're not working. They're not working. Now, I don't know, I don't go in, I just listen and usually pass it on, but that's why we have some hand towels. That's why we have them. And I'm likely the guy that's telling them we need them, because I don't think it's right that you don't have the opportunity to wash your hands and dry them. So that's what we need. I don't know what the answer is on that, but I'll leave it with you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Never a bad idea to have some as a backup, certainly in the supply closet. I never know when those will go down. I did want to say, just for anyone who was unaware, although I think everyone might be, that Mr. Brown is a co-founder of an environmental services company and retired now, but certainly his expertise, I will take a little bit of credit for suggesting apply to the committee, and I did have a grand plan that I hoped that he would get on and there would be an opportunity to use his vast knowledge. So I am greatly appreciative of his work, and Mr. Beamer and Mr. Angelo for bringing him along. I guess I'll just ask Director Angelo, did you want anything when I entertain a motion here? Did you want anything more kind of specific than the discussion that we've had? I guess we've kind of highlighted standardized system and procedure, employee education, and then I guess investigating some potential cost control measures. Did you want anything more specific, or?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I guess that's a good idea. And now that committee's seen and heard the information presented, it's probably appropriate that you give direction to staff, that committee gives direction to staff to proceed with implementing some of the recommendations in the report. And so that will give clear direction for me to then go to other departments and implement this sort of standardized plan going forward. And I can communicate that back to the committee at the next meeting of our next steps and where we're at, and that sort of thing going forward.
Would you like a motion to bring back kind of a small report with the standardized process and maybe some suggestions on funding maybe for cost control and the education, or should we just move it all together and you give updates? Would that be preferable?
I think from my perspective, Mr. Chairman, if you give me direction to proceed with some of the recommendations in the report, anything on costs I'll bring back to the committee and council, but I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do right now, especially implementing a standardized, consistent educational program, consistent sort of like what you see at Loyalist College or Carleton, some of that disposal facility areas, centralized areas, we can implement that at fairly economical cost. So provide huge dividends and benefits to the city, and meeting some of our targets going forward.
That's great. I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. It's a wonderful report. So I will entertain a motion to direct staff to begin to implement the recommendations with some follow-up updates from Director Angelo, some information to come in the future. I'll entertain that. Moved by Mr. Mayor on his way out. No, go right ahead.
Go ahead, do you mind? I just wanted to make a mention about bees before I go.
Okay. Well, go ahead. What?
I sprayed an apple orchard for 30 years, from 1963 to 1993. And I used lead arsenic, DDT, and mercury. Those were three of the main ingredients that we used. Not just me. Every farmer that had an orchard used similar ingredients. But we made sure that we do not spray any insecticide during the pollination period. Bees are our workers. Bees are the individuals that produce the product that we all love. So what you're talking about today is absolutely vital to the livelihood of farming. And so I appreciate what you're saying today. Thank you.
I'll second the motion that he made.
All right then, so I will ask for a vote then in favor. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. So I think that the mayor moved on his way out, and Councillor McHugh seconded. So yeah. And for Councillor Sharp, the mayor was just mentioning that on his farm over the years, he's used some of the chemicals, different pesticides and whatnot, but always made sure to care for the bees and protect them as they're an important part of the ecosystem. So, okay, so we are moving along. That will bring us to item 6C, which is staff report 24-009 PWES. And I will call on Director Angelo to speak to the committee about Quinte West becoming a bee city.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of myself and Mrs. McBride that put together the majority of this report for committee's consideration, we're pleased to present this report and recommend to the committee that we become a bee certified city. You heard the presentation from the group at the last committee meeting about the benefits of pollinator gardens and endorsing, providing that endorsement on behalf of this city as becoming a bee city. We're currently doing this now. We're creating these pollinator gardens throughout the municipality. You'll see it with a naturalized flower garden to just behind me next to City Hall, across from the LCBO on Front Street. The Conservation Authority is doing these naturalized gardens. We think this is the next step in environmental sustainability. We already have a tree canopy policy. We do tree planting every year. We have a seedling giveaway program every spring. We're currently doing these significant investments in enhancing our community with pollinator gardens, et cetera. And we believe this is the next step to fulfill our commitment as this bee certified city. And without further ado, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Certainly. Do we have any questions for Director Angelo on the report? Jacqueline, go ahead.
I personally really like this initiative and proposal, but I want to add what I did at that presentation as well, as just to have a caveat in terms of the public messaging about this, that pollinators, there are a multitude of pollinators, and they're all protected by this program, but it would do well to advance public education in terms of that, because it then reduces people targeting those things that they think are not helpful when they actually are. I have had to speak to my father the other day about an invasion of wasps at my house. Unfortunately, they're all pollinator wasps, so I'm living with wasps in my woodwork. But they are only there for a short period of time. But these kind of things, I think, are important, that it's not just bee-specific. And that will also enhance the effort for bees.
Mr. Henning, go ahead.
Just to add to that comment, the gardens have certainly not gone unnoticed. Folks that I know quite well that are environmentalists, if you want to call them that, are interested in the environment and doing things like making their backyards bee-friendly and that sort of thing, have noticed them, and they've frequently asked me, well, who's responsible for this? It's a great idea. And so congratulations, my hat's off to those that are developing this whole idea. It's great.
Councillor McHugh.
I look forward, hopefully, to the city of Quinte West being a Class A city with a B certification. That makes sense?
Yeah, you always have those ready and waiting. I swear the whole report, you were thinking something up over here, cooking something up. I knew it.
Need a motion?
Yes, I will entertain a motion. Okay, moved by Councilor McHugh, seconded by Mr. Brown. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Okay. All right. Moving on once more. Yes, printed information. So there's several flyers, information sheets in here. I will hand it over to Director Angelo just to present that information to the committee and anyone watching.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first sort of information I wanted to just bring to committee's attention is the Circular Materials of Ontario publication. We're in the transition right now from a municipal-funded recycling program to a producer-funded program. That's really going to change the landscape on how recycling is going to be dealt with come July 31st next year. And then additional changes coming through from the province in January 1st, 2026. As some of you may have heard me explain before, we have decided as a city that we're going to continue with the same level of service in a municipality that we currently have. That means that the ineligible services that the province has deemed to be ineligible for pickup, we will continue to pick that up and be funded by this municipality going forward. Those are things like municipal facilities that the province, when they passed the legislation in early 2021, they deemed a number of, municipal facilities, nursing homes, schools, et cetera, to be ineligible service. So council has already endorsed that we would continue that service, as well as our successful household hazardous waste program that we have. We're going to continue with that service going forward in 2026 as that transitions from Quinte Waste Solutions over to our municipality, and then we have to find a service provider to provide that going forward in the future. With that in mind, I am attending a conference session on Thursday in Toronto regarding what's happening in 2026. I understand from the province that there'll be more eligible items in the blue box that's going to be allowed than what's currently being allowed right now. And we're waiting to hear what that's going to be, and we're supposed to have some details about that later this week. We're gearing up with our communications team and circular materials communication team on the consistent messaging going forward in next year and the year after that on how we're going to communicate with our residents. But just to keep you informed, that's a lot of great information that CMO, or Circular Materials of Ontario, have provided to us, and I thought that'd be relevant and important to provide to all of you as well as we transition at the end of July next year to this new producer model.
Did any of the community members? Sure, Mr. Brown, go ahead.
Through you, Chairman Card, to Director D'Angelo, one of the things that you just mentioned, and I thought was critical, is this standardized list of recycling. Have they provided that for the city of Quinte West?
Through Mr. Chairman, what they've said is what's currently being provided now is what's going to be acceptable come July 31st, 2025. That's going to change January 1st, 2026, and I'm told they're going to allow a more robust list going forward beyond that. I don't know what that entails yet. I don't even know if the province knows that yet, but I'm heard it's supposed to change again and make it more items that could be received into the recycling stream.
Mr. Brown, go ahead.
And one further question, I was looking at the list again on timeframes and recognizing that, you know, we're in for July 17th of 2025. But I was thinking about, are there any other communities, and I went through that list and I saw Brighton had implemented, Port Hope, Cobourg, and Peterborough in January the 1st of 2024. Do you have any feedback how that program's went? Because I don't.
Through Mr. Chairman, very good question. We've been trying to find some information from municipalities that have transitioned already. A lot of the information hasn't been forthright yet, because some have just transitioned over a year ago, and they're just looking at doing those audits to see what's happened. We're hopeful we'll have that information before we do our full transition in 2025. I'm happy to report, though, that the contractor selected for our area is the same contractor that's providing our waste and organics pickup right now.
Jacqueline, go ahead.
Just a question and a comment. Very recently, in my employ, we came across a company called TerraCycle. I'm not sure if you know about TerraCycle, the Recycle Everything box programs. And it just struck me that they have an extended list of providers that will that have a free stream and a per cost stream. The free stream are like Swiffer. You can, any building that has industrial use of cleaning products, they have Swiffer will take for free all their products back. Similar to that, I just thought that might be an interesting thing to explore and pursue as well, because they seem to have an awful lot of programs, and they've reached out to some producers that may not be on the list that the province has.
And if there are no more comments from the committee, I would note, everyone will recall, we instituted a second trash bash, so to speak. This year it will be happening on October 26th, and it's called the Quinte West Community Cleanup. And I know that last year the attendance was a little bit less voluminous than we were hoping for, a little bit more sparse. So I would just invite the committee members, if they are able to come out, or even just share with their social circles the fact that that event is going on October 26th, and we will hopefully make this one bigger and better. I've seen on social media there's seems to be a bit more community engagement on this topic lately, which I do appreciate, and I'm hoping we can funnel everyone out to that day and make Quinte West as clean and beautiful as we can. All right, so moving on, we did have new business, just a conversation regarding tree bag utilization, but I think that we are seeking a little bit more information there, and Councillor O'Neill, I believe, is on vacation, and I did want him to be a part of that discussion, so I think that we are going to table that for now and pick it up at the next meeting. But otherwise, I will go through the committee if there are any other announcements or new business or anything they would like to speak on. I will start at Lori. Nothing. Mr. Brown, do you have anything?
Just a clarification, what does tree bag utilization mean?
So, well, I can actually hand it over to Director Angelo probably to explain, but with the, yeah, I'll let Director Angelo explain how that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a few years ago, we implemented in the downtown core the self-watering basket, flowering baskets. This is based off the similar process where we don't need to water these trees as often as required. It's the same sort of program where we have to water maybe once a week or once every couple of weeks, but it's a self-watering sort of program.
Councillor O'Neill and His Worship, I believe Councillor Armstrong, we were at the Day of Caring planting event at Bain Park, and part of the park staff were just kind of explaining some of the trees we were planting and the bags, just how they require, I guess, less staff time and keep the trees very well hydrated for longer periods. So we just wanted to have a discussion to see if possibly their wider use could be something of benefit to the city. But yeah, that was a great event that day. Councillor McHugh?
Good, thank you.
Nothing. Okay, Ms. Miller, anything? Nothing.
I thought it was a very productive meeting, nothing to add.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for listening, first of all, and also for your suggestions and help in coming up with this proposal, as well as your review of it today and the ideas and suggestions made today. Thanks very much. They say that sometimes, I think I've heard it, that a camel, how's it? A horse was committed, anyway, the difference between a camel and a horse was that a camel was created by a committee. Well, I have to say that we've created some pretty good camels, so thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Sharp, I will ask if you have anything on Zoom.
Nothing we can share.
Okay, I'll come back to Mr. Brown. Go ahead.
I just want to take a moment to acknowledge Jacqueline's accomplishment of her dissertation on her doctorate. I think it's a tremendous accomplishment, and we would be amiss not to acknowledge the hard work that she put in. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows.
Congratulations. What was your dissertation on?
It actually was a very large and long dissertation that lapsed quite some time ago on communication in small mammals, essentially. And my doctorate degree is in ecology and evolutionary biology, so I'm hoping appropriate to this committee.
That is very wonderful. Congratulations on that. And yes, before I ask for adjournment, I did want to thank all of the members of the committee, the public members and staff. I think this was a wonderful agenda. I sit on many committees, of course, like my colleagues on council, and I know that there aren't always obvious opportunities for the public members to really sink their teeth in, and they have all this energy and they're driven for change. They join a city committee to do good in the community and try to shape policy, and it can be difficult to kind of transfer that energy into actual policy, and I am just very thrilled that I think we were able to do that this meeting with a couple of agenda items, and look forward to carrying that momentum into the future, and just wanted to thank everyone for that. So, okay, I will entertain 2 for adjournment. Okay, we have them down here, Mr. Brown, Ms. Dennis, and all in favor. All right, we are done for the day.